So, hallo, wir sind jetzt eigentlich live. Wir könnten starten. Karin, hörst du mich?
Ja, super. Jelena startet, nicht?
Alles ist gestartet. Die Frage ist jetzt, ich glaube, du bist die Rednerin, bei dir sieht man nur Karin Reisinger, das heißt, ja, jetzt. Super.
Okay, super.
Well, thank you so much for the patience. I'm happy it worked out in the end. I hope that we are a live stream now, finally. We have amazing guests tonight, this morning, or this evening. We are actually broadcasting in three time zones. My name is Jelena Micic. I'm artistic director of Woche Festival for Art and Activism. I'm so happy to be able to host this discussion that we co-organized together with Karin Reisinger, who will be your host basically this morning slash noon slash evening. And just to say a few words about the festival, we are a community-based festival in Vienna, existing since 13 years. Our annual topic is the non-citizen movement, and where we really try to tackle the questions around solidarities of the people without privileges of citizenship. So Austrian non-nationals have the possibility of exchanging and potentially building a meeting together. And yes, we have a very important project as well, the Anti-Extraction People's School. So the discussion that Karin is hosting and moderating is part of this project, and we have the project representatives as well who would present the school program as well at the end of this meeting. Karin, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much. Robert, can you please just confirm to me that we are streaming this on YouTube? Can you please just confirm? Okay, sorry for these tech hiccups and for you. Thank you so much for your patience. So, and above all, thanks Woche for inviting me to moderate this discussion today, which I think is very valuable. So we're streaming this on YouTube, so please put your comments and your questions to the YouTube live stream chat. Also to participate in our conversation, and please write the name you would like to be called, and also pronomen if you like. And we will also be recording this session, as I think Jelena just said, for Radio Orange, where it is broadcasted next week. I also want to mention briefly that this is also part of the Anti-Extraction People's School that was initiated by GEB, the group on green extractivism in the Balkans, which are Nina Čukanović, Mirko Nikolić, and Sofia Stefanović, and one of them will, in the last 5 minutes of our panel, give a short preview on the coming days and tell a bit what's happening. And they're doing this together with Kulturzentrum Altangrund, but we'll give much better detail at the end of this. Yeah, so I will introduce myself very quickly before we go to the amazing speakers of this conference, of this panel. I'm a researcher, also an architect. I also do exhibitions. And my research project that you can also find online on mountainsofore.org has been looking at mining areas from intersectional feminist perspectives during the last 8 years. I'm affiliated with the Academy of Fine Arts Vienna. And I have a participation in the International Architecture Biennale in Rotterdam now, going until October 13, where you can also hear a video together with Lise Marie Gorok-Jutfors, who is the third speaker in this panel. And we also just had a recent project on the mining town of Eisenerz, where the essential part was to bring this reproductive labor together with extractivism in exhibitions, in working together with citizens. Yeah. So I'm very much interested in this mining, this connection of mining and the labor of reproduction, which our first speaker will tackle, Samantha Hargreaves. And for all our conversation in our previous discussions, our main questions circled around these contributions from the different areas we introduced today, where the exploitation for coal or mineral mining is happening, mostly in colonial contexts. So that is South Africa and beyond, represented by Samantha Hargreaves, the Swedish part of Sápmi, represented by Marie Gorak-Jutfos, and Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan, represented by Bermet Borubaeva. So we're all building on these intersectional feminisms in our works and revisit these mining areas from the perspectives of women, where I see women as written with an asterisk, indigenous people and workers, and how they are impacted by the appropriation of the lands, but always focusing on these agencies and empowerment. So we want to focus on these kind of like situations and agencies of local people, and also hopefully provide some footing, I mean, something where we can hold on amidst this literally destabilizing grounds of mining, aggravations of capitalist extraction, and also ecological devastation, and often in the fields of ongoing colonization. So resistance is definitely a topic, but also like, how do we produce knowledge? How do we know about things? How do we share our knowledge? How can we come together? And in relation to that, I'm very glad that I can introduce three practitioners today with their artistic and research practices in working in these mining fields, and these various formats that all of them approach. I think that's really very interesting to see. So let me introduce the first speaker, and that is Samantha Hargreaves. And Samantha is an African ecofeminist activist and has 3 decades of experience in her NGO struggle. Topics are land, agriculture, and extractivism, very near to mining most of the time, as I understand. She's a field worker, a researcher, a campaigner, a strategist, and a program manager, and has also a lot of collaborations internationally. So the tasks are supporting movements, solidarity efforts, campaigns, and the support of organizations working on women, violence against women. And most important of all maybe is that Samantha Hargreaves is the founder of Women, an organization she will speak about today. Thank you so much, Samantha, for being with us today, and I will give you the floor, please.
Great, thank you so much. I just want to share my screen. Why is it not sharing? Hold on. Is my screen coming up? Oh, it's not coming up. Sorry, we tested this all out and now I am struggling. It's bizarre. Okay, there we go. Right, I think you can see that now.
I don't see your presentation yet.
Okay,
I
so
can see. It
And
is.
I can
It
see.
is. It works. It works.
Yeah, it works.
okay, fantastic. I just want to make sure that I can play. All right. So, sorry for that little bit. So, as Karin says, I work for Woman. We're an African alliance that works across the continent. We work with partners, allies, which include movements, faith groups, networks and alliances, community groups in 17 countries across East, West, Central, and Southern Africa. And we turned 10 last year, so we're into our 11th year of official working. Woman characterizes itself as an eco-feminist alliance. We are very explicitly anti-capitalist in our politics, and we work to support, our primary mission is to support women's organizing and building, movement building, to challenge extractivism, and we largely focus on mining, oil, gas, coal, but also big energy projects and infrastructure related to that, such as dams, ports and harbors, train lines, and so on. So I wanted to start with a women's struggle song. This comes from West Africa, from a country called Sierra Leone, and it's performed by a woman activist called Aminata Kamara. So I hope it will play properly now. Great. And
Samantha,
did you
sorry.
hear that?
Obviously, we didn't hear that.
Okay. All right. The way that I was screen sharing it earlier. Sorry, no, this great. And
Samantha,
did you hear that?
Obviously, we didn't hear that.
Okay. All right. Let me try again. Okay. It seems like I can't share the screen and the sound at the same time, but I was able to do that earlier. Sorry, now we really are wasting time here. Are you seeing anything coming up? This is the challenge now. I think we're just going to have to leave it. It's beautiful, but you've seen you have seen the words. And sorry, we did test it, but I'm struggling now to put it up. So it's a struggle song from West Africa, from Sierra Leone. It's actually in Pidgin, which is a very interesting melding of English, but also of local languages. So I'm diving in. As I said, we work on extractivism. We do not work on industrial agriculture, industrial fishing. We do work on energy, but it's not a major thrust. But I did want to point to some of the major impacts of extractivism. And we refer to extractivism. So it obviously speaks to extractives as an activity, but it speaks more broadly to how the extractive sector, the large industrial extractive sector, has shaped and the logic of extractivism in relation to nature has shaped societies, whole economies, and obviously geopolitical relations around the world in a deeply unequal fashion, with Africa and many other countries, the southern countries, the developing countries, but also affecting people within the global north. So this notion of there's a global south and a global north is actually, it's an extremely complex reality in this historical period. But it's characterized by displacements. This is a primary impact, and in the African context where the majority of people rely on the land for survival, land, natural water sources, and forests for survival. And so when you take people's land, water bodies, and forests away, you destroy the ability of people to survive at all. So displacements. I'm just going to flip through some images. This is from South Africa, Marikana. This is gas flaring in Nigeria, where you have villages literally 100 meters from gas flaring. This is in South Africa. This is the epicenter of our coal to oil industry. It's one of the most polluting industries, not just in South Africa, but the world. Slimes Dam, this is the waste material from coal mining. The health costs, this is another dimension of the impacts of extractives. In Southern Africa, we have found decades, literally six decades of circular migration in support of the South African mining industry. And people literally, men who've worked in the mines go home to die in extremely impoverished countries and communities, in this case, Malawi. South Africa, coal-based energy system. Then the third dimension that I wanted to speak to is militarization, securitization, and violence against women. This is a major focus for women's work. These are some of the publications we've produced. So examples of the link between extractivism as a development model, militarization, securitization, and mining are Cabo Delgado in Mozambique, where there's a large civil war, a very destructive, violent civil war unfolding around the oil and gas industry there. In the DRC, the Congo, on the eastern side of the DRC, 6 million people have died in 25 years. And much of this is linked to control of and benefit from natural resources. As we see the rise of green extractivism linked to the energy transition in the global north, we're seeing deepening conflicts. And in the eastern side of the DRC, this is linked to lithium and cobalt used in batteries for the energy sector, but also in technology such as our cell phones or computers. South Africa, the Marikana massacre, where 34 striking mine workers were... Yes?
Sorry, Samantha, may I just ask you to share your presentation again? We have lost your presentation.
Oh, okay.
Sorry.
No problem. Okay. All right. There we go. Can you see that now? Yeah?
Yes. Yeah.
Great. I don't know what you missed, but this is the Marikana massacre. 34 striking mine workers in South Africa were assassinated, murdered by the police. And this was in response to a strike, where even our very own president, Cyril Ramaphosa, basically said to the police commissioner, get these mine workers back to work. And that meant 34 people, mine workers, were brutally killed. The climate crisis is another dimension of the fallout of extractivism. East Africa, locust swarms, and the presence of a bird called the Kwewele bird, which has decimated crops for a few years in a row. In southern East Africa and the Sahel, we've had long-standing droughts running for 10 to 25 years. These are cyclones that have been hitting Madagascar and the southern eastern part of the continent, particularly Mozambique, Zimbabwe, Malawi, and I mentioned Zimbabwe. South Africa has been having tornadoes, unheard of historically. This is along the west coast of Africa. Here people are dealing with rising sea levels, also warming oceans. These are all some of the fallouts of extractivism. I've talked a little bit around the rise of green extractivism. We're now seeing a major new push to extract minerals and metals and produce new, inverted commas, green forms of energy like green hydrogen, as well as mega dams, hydro dams, which are again displacing people and destroying lives as well as ecologies at a cumulative, it's a building, a very high rate of expansion. And all of this affects women in very particular ways. So this has led, and I talked about how the loss of land, water, food, but also of livelihoods, essentially has led to a crisis of social reproduction across most of the continent, coupled with the climate crisis, the debt crisis, the ecological crisis, and we can continue, means that the majority of Africans struggle to reproduce themselves daily. And I think this is a very powerful quote from Federici, one of my favorite thinkers. She talks about how capitalism fosters a permanent reproduction crisis. If it has not been more apparent, it is because the human catastrophes it has caused have been historically externalized, and we argue externalized to workers, externalized to nature, externalized to women because of the reproductive work that they do every day, but also externalized to nature. So these have been historically externalized, being confined to the colonies, thus made invisible or rationalized as effects of cultural backwardness, attachment to misguided traditions, tribalism, etc. This externalization continues today, as does its ideological cover-up. The economic and social disintegration many third world countries are experiencing due to the effects of economic liberalization is rationalized through the revamping of a colonial ideology that blames the victims, relying on the increasing distancing of worlds and the anxiety about others created by the apparent diminishing of resources. And I think for those of us that are working on mining on the African continent, we're seeing a very particular discourse emerging in parts of Europe, and not obviously all organizations, but some of the more prominent CSOs, where we're seeing the emergence of this. We need to protect and guarantee Europe's access to the green minerals and metals that we need to make the transition and have a good life. And the adoption of extreme xenophobia we're starting to see amongst many obviously European companies, governments, but increasingly also civil society. So I think maybe just to make a couple of points, that what I've pointed to in all of the crises that the images I presented lay out, we cannot understand them without understanding the capitalist system. So Wallman's analysis is ecological, is feminist, but it's also anti-capitalist. So we know that capital and its expansionist logic, organized around the accumulation of wealth, by big transnational corporations, but obviously also by extremely wealthy individuals, the 1% that we speak of. This is seen as the ultimate goal of society, not the care of each other, not support for reproduction and a good life, not support for the reduction of massive inequality, rather that this expansion of production and the accumulation of wealth by a few is seen as the ultimate goal of society. So growth lies at the epicenter of capitalist economic logic. And so it's about growing economies in the shortest time frame. And so growth means you have to grow your economy. So you have to fuel increased production, which leads to rapid and expanding absorption of energy and materials, leading to more and more toxic waste that is then dumped into the environment. We all know this, but nature is reduced to a commodity, and this is the sort of extremely Eurocentric Western features of highly industrialized capitalist economies, where nature does not have to be preserved in and for itself. that the interests and rights of nature, but also the multiple species that are in nature and whose lives ours are intertwined with, they're reduced to commodities to be traded for profit. And then the costs of production, and I've mentioned all of these, are externalized to people, especially women in the unpaid care work, as well as the state as the provider of public and social services. So increasingly, as ecologies, environments are destroyed, as the climate crisis increases, as people lose their land and their ability to produce, the costs are largely externalized to working class and peasant women on the African continent. And ecofeminist socialists argue that working class women are the sponges of the fallout of a capitalist mode of production and therefore heavily subsidize the accumulation process. And this is something that Wellman has illustrated and continues to seek to illustrate through all of the work that we do. I think what's really important is I've presented the logic of a system and extractivist capitalist logic, but people have resisted the imposition of capitalism and a colonial imperial logic for centuries. And so this resistance continues. So here we have women marching in Port Harcourt, which is in Nigeria, and this is where the oil and gas industry, oil industry particularly, has been paramount since the 1950s. These are women in Marikana who united to contest the assassinations of workers and demand reparations. Women across Southern Africa who are affected by big coal operations, unifying and contesting the expansion of coal. In the Niger Delta, where women have risen up, challenged oil and all of the militarization and death that has accompanied the rise of the oil industry. And I absolutely love this quote. It comes from activists in South Africa. They're actually the original people. They descended from the Khoi and the San, so the First Nation people in the Northern Cape of South Africa. It's a very desolate, isolated area, but people have been fighting for their land since the arrival of the colonists, white people in South Africa in mid-1600s. But it's so beautiful. You come for one, you come for us all. You come for us, you will face us all. We are not one person. We're not a building you can bulldoze and crumble to dust. We stand on the shoulders of those who came before us and who fought for fairness and justice. We are every ancestor whose blood, sweat, and tears stain the Nama land. 1,000 generations live within us. 1,000 bloodlines are within us. You come for us and you come for us all. So this is Reneska, who's a Nama. She's descended from the Khoi and the Nama people. When people are contesting extractivism, we are of the view that they are contesting the undermining of their sovereignty, their ability to make decisions about their lives, their futures, the future of their children. But in their struggles, they are also defending a way of living, a way of producing, a way of being with nature, a way of being together as human beings, living with mutual respect and understanding that being alone does not equal survival. And so there's a very particular African concept called Ubuntu. It has many, many names in African languages, but it basically means
No.
Okay, it looks like we have lost Samantha and her connection for a minute. I hope she will come back very soon. What I can do in the meantime, while we wait for her, I can try to play the song she wanted to play.
I'm sorry. I lost my connection. Ah, okay, let me just quickly get back. Here. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. So, I mean, I think these are the dimensions that women who are leading resistances across the continent are either defending or proposing. So living with enough, the good life, defending the living African commons. So the majority of Africans, 800 million people, live in the commons. They live under customary, traditional, and community tenure systems. Having sovereignty, being able to determine your development destiny, protecting and defending nature, centering Indigenous knowledge and practices, displacing the collective, building the collective and displacing the individual self-interest, focusing on care and not profit, expanding women's power, leadership, and perspective, striving for Pan-Africanism, which is both a theory but also a movement which centers African people and basically calls for African solidarity to contest ongoing colonization and imperialism, and then African spiritualism. I am because we are a connectivity to nature and different conceptions of justice. I'm just going to talk very briefly around women and the work that we do. So in supporting feminist organizing and movement building, we run feminist schools. These are schools which bring together grassroots activists. No. These are schools which bring together grassroots women activists, women leaders from across the continent. We have Pan-African schools, we have national schools, we have linguistic schools. We've just had an African Development Bank school, which is about supporting women leaders from communities that are fighting the African Development Bank, which is one of the part of the architecture of the international finance system. This is the Uganda National Feminist School. We also support exchanges and convergences. So this was one that we supported in January 2016, unifying the struggles of women across Southern Africa fighting big coal. Learning exchanges, this was one where women in Sierra Leone and women in Botswana who are fighting the oil industry, the rise of the oil industry, went to Nigeria to learn from women there. We also support knowledge building and the strengthening of consciousness, critical consciousness, through the development of very accessible materials written for grassroots activists in multiple languages. But the content is really built to support women on the ground in their activism and organizing. These are examples. We have a whole right to say no collection of resources. We've done films, so we've done Women Hold Up the Sky, which reflects the struggles of women from the DRC, the Congo, South Africa, as well as Uganda. We've done animated films so that we can try and rise above linguistic differences, but still communicate core ideas. The second thing we do is we believe that most of the knowledge that is predominant in the world is a knowledge which reflects dominant ideas that are oppressive. And so part of the political economy research we do is about providing a political economy analysis of extractivism in very particular contexts. So we've done a lot of feminist political economy research In support of organizing and struggles, we turn traditional, like mainstream ideas about knowledge on their head and support women themselves actually identify the questions and research questions that affect their very own communities. So they are building knowledge collectively and supporting organizing at the same time. And we've been doing increasingly cost analysis based on earlier impact assessments, where we're working with women in communities to attach costs to externalized impacts of extractivism and the climate crisis, but really to foreground the costs and the losses that accompany extractivism and the climate crisis that is being fueled elsewhere in the world, but Africans and other working class people across the world are carrying. And the cost analysis then forms the basis, in a highly participatory way, forms the basis of campaigns for reparations. These are some of the feminist political economy research pieces that we've done. This is feminist participatory action research that was done in Ghana, in South Africa, amongst mining impacted communities, coal mining affected communities. In Senegal, around the African Development Bank, Sendu supported coal-fired power station. We've been doing cost analysis in Burkina Faso and in Madagascar. So that's sort of the second dimension of work. The third is because people have experienced so many losses in their lives as a result of imposed economic models and projects, we do quite a bit of work as an underpinning for feminist organizing and movement building, actually helping people regenerate livelihoods that are land-based, that are ecological, that are based on indigenous seeds and so on. The other critical work we do is supporting women-led campaigns. Now, these are not NGO women, these are women from movements, women that are actively engaged in struggles. So it's about bringing women's voice and women's perspective from the ground and not the middle class women in the urban centers working in NGOs, but really centering women and their struggles. So these are some of the campaigns we've been running. And then we've been supporting dialogues with women to dream and imagine a different community society in Africa. So this is really about, again, giving voice and allowing women to organize both in their communities and beyond to put forward a very different perspective around what development means to them. We have large Pan-African convergences. This is the Climate Assembly, the Women's Climate Assembly that is held, bringing together hundreds and hundreds of women activists from across Western Central Africa. So it's a living, breathing assembly of women in resistance. And we also are part of a number of big global platforms in which we seek to collaborate with others to really build and advance and make visible the alternatives that the world and nature need. So I'm going to leave it there. I think I've spoken for quite a bit. Apologies for that.
Yeah, thank you so much, Samantha Hargreave, for this tremendous insight. We have to change a bit with our concept of letting the audience come in and contribute to this discussion. So I am sure you have collected a lot of questions for Samantha. In the meantime, please continue collecting your questions. And Wienwoche has offered to share a phone for this, the number. So I will tell you number now of a phone number, and I will also prepare for the next pause some visuals of this procedure. So there is a phone number where you can write text messages to or WhatsApps with questions, and that is an Austrian phone number with 0043 660 322-8312. So either this, or you can write an email to Jelena Micic, Jelena dot MICIC at where was that? Wienwoche.org. So I will prepare visuals for you during the next presentation, how you do that. But I say it once more again, either email Jelena.Micic, which is spelled MICMIC, at wienwoche.org, or the phone number is plus 43 660-322-8312. Okay, sorry for that, guys. I'm sure you have wonderful questions. And thank you once more, Samantha, for your fantastic insights. I will move on now to introduce Bermet Borubaeva, who will lead us to Bishkek in Kyrgyzstan now. Bermet is a multidisciplinary artist. She's also a curator, urban environmentalist, and labor rights activist. She's also co-founder of the Bishkek School of Contemporary Art, and her topics are food, production, labor, migration, and the urban environment. And she has a variety of practices and curated recently the education program of the Bishkek presentation of the exhibition Lingua Franca at the Central Asian Pavilion at the 54th Venice Biennale, and had recent exhibition projects in Kunstraum Dreiviertel in Bern, and also research residence in Chicago, which is called Trash into Treasures. Her current project is the Eco Art Festival called Trash, in collaboration with Tasar Kyrgyzstan and the School of Methodology of Art Research. And she's the co-founder of #Bishkek Smog. And yeah, so we will proceed on this kind of like topics of women in mining, and also this question of how we produce knowledge about the field. Thank you, Bermet, for being with us today. The floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. Really happy to meet you, to see you. And yeah, I just want to share my research that I did last year, that I presented. And it's also about coal mining, about actually how it was represented in fine art in Kyrgyzstan, and how was changing everything with like 100 years. And yeah, it's update that we have YouTube live chat now. So yeah, if you can have if you have direct questions, like according to the presentation or before, so please write it. And yeah, it's I just wanted to show that like coal mining in Kyrgyzstan is yeah, like small Central Asian country. Actually, it is between Kazakhstan and Russian Federation that actually makes yeah, a lot of extracting, especially yeah, gas and coal. But in Kyrgyzstan, we had also some coal mining starting 125 years ago. And my research was based on some interviews, museum analysis. I had some trips to many museums in Kyrgyzstan and analyzing archival materials, photos, and artworks presented in collections, museum collections. And for me, it was yeah, so, very interesting research that actually brings you what inside of mining, and show you lives actually people, human lives behind. So what was for me very important. And short introduction why actually I was doing it, because I did a documentary film about air pollution, and now you can see actually Bishkek in winter time from the mountains. So actually you can't see the city because of super intense air pollution and because of actually heating with coal and yeah, and in general terrible situation with environmental defense. And yeah, now our city hall is doing actually even worse. They're destroying now the only electrical transportation, public transportation in city. So this year, I don't know, we actually slowly dying because of this pollution. It's like 13% officially deaths caused by air pollution in Kyrgyzstan. So it's very high rate. And as the Kyrgyz Republic before was a part of Soviet Union, we had some we had I have some photos from that period, and actually you can see here like a very industrialized period of mining. But before it was like something like this, like one line for some trains, like small wages for coal mining. That was bringing coal from the mining center. And then actually, it was more updated and upgraded with and the industry was really growing. And one of the city was Kızılkaya, so it's on the south of Republic, and yeah, it's still quite rich with coal. And yeah, and then even for now we have also several of these mining. But what we can say about today, because why it's also important, because of a lot of tragedies in the mines. For this moment, these mines are very unsecure, so people really can have like can be hurt or even died, and usually no one do nothing, because sometimes it's like illegal miners, so they are coal miners, but they go there with a like private mining, and yeah, it's not in good condition, technical condition, and it also can be death because of gas and etc. So now actually no one almost responsible for people life in the mining sector. That's actually super sad, and what is actually happening. So I mean, it's just random tragedies, but it's normal to us, like to have, I mean, normal because it's like very usual. So it's every time we hear that in some mining, like 10 people died or etc. That is crazy. And I really want to mostly say also about women in coal industry, because actually in the history it was started in England when women started working in coal industry, and yeah, and etc. And then we have this human right bill that actually was prohibiting one moment to work on mining for women and for children. And so in this Kızılkaya that I told that where actually our mining started. We had like around 400 women working there during the World War II, because when it started, men was on the war has gone, and mostly women started to go to do mining. But even before, in also Russian Empire, also sometimes some woman was working on the in the mining. And so this convention was ratified for 70 countries, including USSR, that just about banning women working on mines. And during the war, it was for sure they didn't follow it. But it's women was also sometimes, for example, do some extra job, like in for example, in selecting the coal, because it's you need sometimes you need to go to special to have a special education for this, and etc. So it's it was this one this is a photo that I really like about Kokyangak woman coal miners. So you see that they're like so beautiful, and they really like looks that they're really proud to be at this photo. And it's very big discussion, actually, I think, until now about this profession. But what we had in Soviet time, after like Cold War, after World War has finished, so it was like in 60s, 70s, it was again banning women on the coal industry. And it's because they have to be like giving it's more like about giving birth to babies and etc. So it was big, actually, turn to the patriarchal also norms in the late Soviet Union, because actually if we can see that there was actually different stages of woman emancipation, of patriarchy norms inside the during the Soviet Union. So it's not homogeneous, and it's actually important to always mention. But anyway, it was important that women in one moment became also like to have access to any scientific work in industry, because before it was, especially in Kyrgyzstan, in Central Asia, it was impossible. Women was not able to read. There was always on the second so it was super patriarchal community. And from here, I just want to show you some pictures, some images. You actually can find it also at our website, Bishkek Smoke, the article about this research. And I will show you just some images of representation of workers in the industry, and it's a main museum of fine arts. And for example, this is work by Laszlo Mészáros. He is actually a Hungarian artist who came to Soviet Union, and he had a very big workshop place, but unfortunately not all his works now presented saved. We had some coal miners by Olga Manuilova, that actually was one of the prominent female sculptor in Kyrgyzstan, and did a lot of works about industry also. So I was really collecting different works, paintings, sculptures, anything that I was able to find. For example, work Still Life by Ignatieva, that you can see that it's definitely some lunchtime for some coal miners because of their heads. And she was a daughter of another artist who was actually representing in the industrialization of the Soviet time, of the Soviet Kyrgyzstan. And since she was a child, her father was always taking her on different hydroelectric station building or whatever. So she was from her childhood actually she was aware about what was in this industry, and it's very nice that she actually continue this mood in her works. So it's now we see the main collection, so really state national museum, the major collection, and so you can see some also spring mood in industrialization, and you can see some also portraits of thinkers or someone who was trying to research to go research the mining. And all young miners of Kyrgyzstan, that also quite so what we can see here, it's more representation of labor and workers. Here it's a more dominantly men's because of actually the specialization, but there were also women. So this is the Museum of Theodor Gerzen in Talas region that also had some had this work, and this the museum in Osh that represent by a work by Astram Kulov, Kızılkaya miners, but it's actually female miners, and it's really a great picture in the collection because it's actually showing this moment when women were very active in coal mining, and you also on the background you also can see these wages with coal. And so the portrait of miners and all coal miner landscapes, or some some other works that you can see. For example, I really like this work by Akim Zbigniew. It's linocut and about 1,000 tash kumur. So actually tash kumur from Kyrgyz language, it translated as a stone, coal stone. So it was another city that was completely built because of coal mining, and very rich infrastructure for this from the beginning. So you can see also some linocuts that shows this giant scale of the industrialization. And for sure, now we know that it's very it has two sides, right? It can be some it shows here as a progress, but for sure it's such a mining extractivism. It's not always progress. It's maybe even mostly it can be mostly opposite from environmental point of view. But for that moment, 60s, 70s, it was general paradigm. And and in this city, it's super beautiful with this river that you can see. There is a historical museum with the exposition also of coal mining history, And this building is actually was like a cultural house or palace of culture that was called coal miner. That was actually for that moment quite popular. There is one documentary we did about this town. It actually was about another factory that has very big pollution. But yeah, I also will share the link to save the time. But here you can see a bit closer with the color the mosaic on the house of culture. And it's actually representing also coal miners coming from the mining from the earth. And it was even like poems or some artworks about this. That was in one article, it was saying that when coal miners came out, there was orchestra welcoming them and their labor and their hard labor. So it was such a period of time when it was actually like very, they were very welcome in this hard labor, that we can have opposition what is happening now with them. And yeah, for example, they had this brigade of communist labor that also you can see like at the Tashkumur mine. And now, and we also discovered this very abandoned city that was actually coal mining administration, and it was huge building with all infrastructure. And here also very beautiful mosaic, also of greetings the coal miners, so you can see. And here you also can see that it's very gender divided. So coal miners, they are like heroes, and women who just welcoming them. So it's very gender polarized, and that actually can be very problematic for our research, for sure. For me as well, because I was really always struggling with this. But for me, I mean, it is still important to show these pictures because of another paradigm of the attention and attitude to labor workers. So it's more like for sure a class division that can be also represented and shown here. So we found also Nakat Historical Museum that also has one small corner of Kulatov, who was a coal miner in the beginning and became like prime minister of Kyrgyzstan. And there was also a picture by a known artist. And this museum, historical museum of Kızılkaya, actually from what all my research started, because I just heard that in some way in south of the country there is a museum of coal miners, but I never was there, and I really wanted to came and to see, to come and see, and finally last year I had this opportunity thanks to initiative foundation, Art Initiative Foundation. And yeah, it's very big for the scale of the city. It's very big museum that actually contains this history of Kızılkaya city by itself, because yeah, it's even started in Russian Empire, because yeah, Kyrgyzstan was before Russian Empire, and that some shepherd found the stone that was also very good burning. And yeah, it's there are many different artifacts, also cabinet of this Kulatov, and some other artifacts. And also this is also very important because it's a newspaper that calls for coal, and it actually shows like chronics of coal mining industry in Soviet Union and especially in Kyrgyz Republic. And this also was important to see that actually coal miners was a very was really liking like music and theater. So they had some clubs, and after work they also had some doing like music together in orchestra that I also found very beautiful. And yeah, so some more. And for example, also very interesting that at the coal mining industry, like at the mine, there was a like artist that actually was employed also by the factory to make some artworks about the factory, about the industry. So there was this Oleg Morozov who was like official artist of this industry. And yeah, he made it old and new to show that actually the difference, that before it was very hard labor and now it's more and more automatization, etc. It's another house of culture also called Coal Miner. And I also put some, because it was also important to show like new artworks about the coal miners, and I found only few pieces, like for example by Sultanova in this city. She made this mural about coal mining and the history of the town. And yeah, the last museum that I can show, it's also Sulukta. It's also one of the industrial city on the south of the country. And you see that it also says that Sulukta is a city of coal miners. And yeah, some photos from the industry. Also like some, for example, stones and equipment. And actually they saved this wage from the from maybe last century. And also the newspaper that called Soviet Coal Miner, and the road of coal miner. So it was also very big popularization of this industry. And workers. And this also one of the beautiful pictures about the city that you can find. And also I found some book illustrations that like for example Light Under the Earth or People of Labor, that also was connected and especially like and illustrating some novels for this. And finishing, it was some kind of conclusion that miners and mining work in paintings is a tribute to heroic labor of those men. And I can add here women, which under capitalism has turned into slave labor. Because today everything that we had before, this attitude, and it's actually not only about like coal miners, it's in general like about miners and workers, and especially women workers actually who doing more work in the because they're women. And now we had really more and more pressure because of situation in Kyrgyzstan with the Islamization and etc. And it's really big issue actually now, labor rights, worker rights, because for this moment it's nothing. And I really just wanted to show you this difference. And also, yeah, we can think after how we can deal with this and what we can discuss. Yeah, thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you so much, Bermet, for taking us to all these exciting areas and museums and monuments. I would rather rush on to leave a little bit of time for discussion later. And also thank you, Bermet, for mentioning that the stream exactly started working when I offered this phone number in the email. So it's up and running now. So please put in your questions there. Also during the last presentation of Liz-Marie Gurak-Jutfos, which I am glad to announce now. Liz-Marie Gurak-Jutfos is Lule Sami and lives in Koskurskule in Sápmi, and that is the land of the indigenous Sami people on the Swedish side of Sápmi. And Koskurskule is also the place of the entrance to the big iron ore mine by LKB. And there's also a copper Aitik mine, a mine from Aitik nearby, and both of the mines are enlarging. So this is also the situation that Liz-Marie is going to speak from. Furthermore, I need to mention that Liz-Marie is an ethnologist. She's working on her PhD at Vardur Umeå Center for Sami Research. She has been working for SVT Sápmi, the indigenous TV broadcaster of Sweden, and has been working in the museums of Gällivare, Aran, and Aite. So she curates exhibition at the moment in Gällivare at Reform, and also writes poems. And I'm also very much intrigued by these multiple formats actually of addressing the indigenous struggle within the acceleration of mining, basically in front of a house door. Thank you, Liz-Marie. We see your presentation, but not yet in the presentation mode. Would you like to change it, or would you like to go like that?
Did you see anything?
Yes, but not in the presentation format. We saw your window, but not the presentation in full screen mode. Can you share again?
Do you see?
Yes. Do you want to switch to full screen? Okay, and now we need to change in the visningsinställningar. In this,
Again?
yeah, växla. Yeah, it looks good to me now.
You see everything?
Yes, thank you so much, Liz-Marie.
Thank you. I'm happy to be in this panel discussion. And I start my PowerPoint. This is from my hometown in Storlule River, this picture. And who am I? My name is Liz-Marie Gómez-Barris, and Gómez is my Sami name. I am a Lule Sami from Gällivare municipality, Koskurskule-Malmberget, in the Swedish part of Sápmi. And as Karin says, I am an ethnologist, researcher, and soft activist, and I work with culture environment protection. I'm a storyteller and poet, and I have worked for 38 years of work in museums, and I built exhibitions, guided tour, I collaborated with schools, associations, and companies, and I wrote articles, have lectures, and research on various topics within Sámi and Norrbottnian culture in Sweden. And in my presentation, I will discuss the importance of the Sámi taking care of their own culture, heritage, and their rights as indigenous people who have lived in this area long before the place became a mining community. And the return to indigenous culture heritage means for the Sámi identity to escape the colonization. We want to take him back one's culture heritage. Is it a part of reconciliation? And we're focusing on the importance of places to feel belonging. And Vacher, the same name of Gällivare municipality, is a mining company with a harsh climate for the Sámi people. In my professional role, I teach the public about the Sámi culture by showing the presence of the Sámi in the area, and works with educational methods in presentations, talks, articles, poetry, and exhibition. And the oral storytelling tradition has always played a central role in Sámi culture. So joiking is a distinctive form of narrative singing to tell stories about people and nature. And these traditions live on today. I bring the place to life to reconnect to the culture and natural environment. And the biggest threat to Sápmi is making Sámi culture invisible. This needs to be countered by conveying knowledge and providing counter images through activism. I call it soft activism. And Sámi research is very important for us. In addition to the university, Sámi research is conducted in the Sámi Institute in Kautokeino in Norway, Arran at Drag in Tysfjord in Norway, and Aite Museum in Jokkmokk. And these places are important places to work with the rights of the Sámi. My hometown is located between two very large mines, Vitofors LKAB and Aitik Boliden. And I will address the different artistic formats I use to fight against the invisibilization of the Sámi population of a mining town. This is a picture from Gällivare and Dundret in the winter time. And this is the summertime. And you can see in the front is Gällivare, and over there you can see Malmberget. And to the right is Koskuskulle, so it's three towns together. I will talk about the complex situation we live in as indigenous people and how we are affected by mining and how we fight for our rights. So I will start with a short introduction about Sámi people. And the Sámi people lives in 4 countries. And you can see on this map, we live in Norway, Finland, Sweden, and Russia. And Russia is Kola Peninsula. And our land calls Sápmi, and we have no borders between us. And this is the Sámi flag. So we are 100,000 Sámi live in northern Scandinavia and the Kola Peninsula. And in the early history, the Sámi people were hunting reindeer, and there are indications that Sámi as an indigenous people have lived together with reindeer for more than 1,000 years. Various kinds of tame reindeer breeding gradually developed later. And the society consisted of family groups. In Sámi we call it sida, which lived and utilized natural resources together. So this is a picture outside Koskuskulle, Malmberget. Some of these groups lived in permanent settlements, others nomadic to varying degrees. This is my grandmother's mother in her house. Some of the Sámi communities were entirely nomadic because they followed the reindeer. Those Sámi who had based their livelihood on fishing in lakes, rivers, and seas and fjords settled more permanently. And here you can see a map of reindeer breeding in Sweden. And we have Sámi villages. There are 51 of these in Sweden. And there are 4,000 Sámi directly dependent on reindeer herding. And Sápmi become colonized. While the missionary work was underway, some areas of the Sámi settlement was colonized, and the Swedish government encouraged farmers to move north. Those who settled in the land of the Sámi were exempted from taxes and also from military services for a time. And when the industrialization took off in Sweden and in the country needed Sápmi natural resources, they need metal ores and hydroelectric power, and timber occurred, were large changes for the Sámi people in Sweden. And the major changes came during the late 1800 and early 1900. Mines and railways, hydropower were built in the area. And we have a Swedification period. In 1913, special normal schools were established where instruction took place mainly in Swedish. And the purpose of this school was giving the Sámi children an education to become Swedes. And during the 20th century, the Swedish government policy toward the Sámi has undergone major changes. Government policy toward the Sámi in the early 20th centuries was based on trying to preserve them as a kind of primitive people. And traces of this policy are still found in certain laws in the practices of some government agencies. Problem, for example, is the effect of the interest of environment protection and tourism industry and mining industry conflict with the attempts of the Sámi to modernize, to modernize reindeer breeding. But most Sámi still feel that the government has not consistent policy for providing adequate support to develop the culture. And Norway was the first country to ratify the protection of land rights to ILO Convention number 169 concerning indigenous and tribal peoples in independent countries. Sweden and Finland has not ratified the protection. We have a Sámi parliament, excuse me, I must have a little water. The Sámi parliament in Sweden was inaugurated in 1993, and they have 31 members of the Sámi parliament assembly. And they have general elections every 4th year. I'm sorry, I have catch a cold. During the past, no, I must stop. Sorry.
Liz Marie, do you want me to lend you my voice? and continue with the text of your slides?
No, it's okay. I try. And during the past 50 years, reindeer breeding Sámi have lost large tracts of pasture land, and modern forestry in particular, including the practices of clear cutting and plowing, has made it more difficult for the Sámi to feed the reindeer in the winter time. Before mining began, the Sámi had settlements in the hometown area around Koskenkorva and Malmberget in the low mountains of Gällivare. You can see it here in the picture. And they find the first iron in the 17th century. Sorry. And the first community move took place around turn of the century in 1900, when the Sámi in Malmberget and Koskenkorva areas have to move from the settlements in the mining industry area. So they have to move away. And some Sámi family, some had their homes and reindeer in the area, must move west. So most of the families moved to Norway, and some moved and stopped reindeer herding and lived by hunting and fishing and farming instead. Here you see a picture of Malmberget and an open pit mine in the middle of this picture. And it has cut the whole villages in two pieces, you can say. Well, I live in Koskenkorva here on the right side, and Gällivare is below. And this is Aitik, the copper mining ore. And this is Malmberget. And you can see this open pit area, the ore in the middle. So the town has changes. Here's a picture of Malmberget, the town. And here is another picture. And this is the open pit mine. You see people lives near this open pit mine. And today they have taken away the houses because of they are going to the LKAB. The mining ore are going to be bigger. So they have taken down the houses. So you can't see any houses today. And they have built up monument instead. And this is the central Malmberget, how it looks like in before and how it looks today. And here's the monument. They think people should come and look at this monument and remember the houses they have demolished down. And this is the square in Malmberget in the past and how it looks today. You can only see the signs. They have put the signs to look at. You can sit down and look at these signs. It's a little bit strange. People are a little bit angry about this because the whole town is blowing away. Here was the school, and now this looks like this in the right photo. And the ore mountain has disappeared bit by bit over many decades, and local residents have become accustomed to parts of the community being demolished or moved. Many people say there a lot of emotion when houses are demolished or moved. You don't have any roots left. And today when you go to Malmberget, it's looked like this. Large parts of the town are gone forever. And over the mountain, you see there is Dundret and Gällivare down the hill. But in Malmberget, it looks like this. A settlement has culture-historical value because it teaches us something about all the societies and living conditions. The social structure of society can also be read in the building patterns of society. And therefore is it a great importance both for the present and for the future that we preserve and care for our cultural environments. Knowing the history of your own place creates a sense of security and pride. And most of Malmberget has been decommissioned as the mine expands, and the many houses have already been demolished or moved to safer ground. Some cultural houses have been taken down to the assembly later. And the social transformation in Malmberget, Gällivare, Koskenkorva continues. This is a little sculpture made by artist Allan Wahlberg, and this I find it in reception at LKAB. And he's sitting and wondering, was this how it was going to be? I think it's very strange to the Sápmi culture taking place in the LKAB. And this is a view from Mountain Dundret towards Gällivare and Malmberget. And I write poems. So this is a poem. Our ancestors and our history are everywhere. In the mountains, in the seas and lakes, in the forest and on the fields, on hiking trails, in the spirit. So I used to write poems when I'm angry and I'm exhausted, and what people should feel what I'm feeling. And it's my I write poems because to learn people about my culture and what I'm thinking. It's a little bit political, you can say. Thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you so much, Lise-Marie, that you fought it through despite you catch the cold. So it's great that you can still be with us today by the cold.
Sorry for my my voice.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you for all these amazing presentations. So far, I could not see any questions in the chat, so I would still offer you, so maybe if there is like, if you feel troubled by the privacy rules of YouTube, I can still offer to show this phone message. I have it like here for a short time. If you want to send questions by text message or WhatsApp, so that is actually still possible. But otherwise, we will also go a little bit over length over time because we had these issues with tech at the beginning. But otherwise, I think it's great that we made it here to come together, and that you shared all these valuable insights in how you're working with this topic of mining. I think this kind of like destruction of the mining town of Malmberget also stayed with me very much. So I will try to start with a question that is about hope, actually, but I also would like to invite all the speakers to address questions to each other, because it's also a very precious meeting point of the 4, 5, 6, 7 of us. So please just come up and do so, and give me a sign if you have a question ready, or if something has been coming up through the phone. I would like to ask about the imaginaries, which imaginaries for the future you actually want to construct with your work, which is very much about research, about knowledge, about campaigning, about working directly with people who are concerned or being concerned yourself. It's also about artistic practices, also about like how to reflect artistic practices and which narratives you want to put it in. And then also these multiple ways of, like, for example, writing poems in the end. So what are these imaginaries of hope that you want to construct amidst this field of extractivism, and how do you feel we might have a chance to get there together? Does somebody want to start?
I don't mind starting, but Liz is off mute.
I think it's fine.
So I started speaking to this question in the presentation, where I was talking about dialogues, so creating space for women that are directly affected by mega projects, along the lines of what Lise presented as well, and creating space for women to do the dreaming and imagining. So we've talked about dreaming and imagining something different. And I think the organization I work for, we're really clear. It's not about us dreaming and imagining or writing. It's about creating space and opportunity for women that are carrying all of these burdens of extraction and the climate crisis, to open space for women themselves to be speaking and dreaming and imagining. And women have given expression to their dreams and imaginations through poetry, through tapestries, through beadwork. So these are some of the ways in which women have spoken to their hopes, their imagination, and their dreams. And our ambition, and I think we were talking about this the other day, we were very ambitious in imagining that many organizations across the continent would come together and support this process. But for us, it's been very powerful. And we're hoping that these sort of processes will come together in a big Pan-African assembly of women in the next few years. And this would be women from communities of resistance from across the continent to give expression and voice. And that would include through artistic expression, which has already started happening. But I think for us too, we've been very clear, and people are saying no to these mega projects, but in the no lives the yes, because what people are defending is a very hopeful alternative, and that hope has been extinguished, or that hope has been interfered with by different waves of colonization. This colonization continues to this day. but people have still managed to hold on to a different form of land ownership and access, what we call the commons. People have held on to continuing to gather and use medicinal herbs. People have held on to very particular relationships that exist in rural communities or indigenous communities. And so, in a sense, what people have defended is the imagination and the dream. And that imagination and dream needs support. And our governments are not giving that dream support. Our governments are very much colluding with capital, with mega industries that are destroying the lives of people. And so, I mean, we have an analysis around that, and we certainly do not we don't move in the direction of this colonial ethos that people are savages, that people cannot live a different form of democracy or justice, but that capital and governments around the world, financial institutions, have to create this notion that people in rural areas, that indigenous people don't know how to do anything. They don't know how to govern themselves. They don't know how to do business. And so that also needs to be contested. And people are doing it every day. I'll leave it there.
Yeah, thank you. That is very touching. Liz-Marie and Bermet, would you like to continue on the imaginaries of hope in relation to your practices?
I think we Sámi people get together and fight together in different ways. We made exhibitions and we have events on stage when we have storytelling and demonstrate against mining companies and oil companies, and we fight together in this way. I call it soft activism. We not demonstrate with violence. We demonstrate to get the knowledge about the Sami culture come out and change people's mind. So I think it's very important. And I was thinking when I saw Bermet's presentation, it looks like Malmberget, some of the pictures with the mining look like Malmberget. So it's almost the same, and women are working in the mining companies in Malmberget as well. And Sámi people has worked because they have to move from their land. They lost their land and they must go back to LKAB and ask for job to survive. So it's awful. They take the land from us and we have to go and beg for a job to survive. So a lot of thinking, but I think dialogues is the most important thing, to share our thoughts together and to meet in this way from different kinds of countries and talk about the same struggle. It's amazing. I get stronger when I listen to other people fighting. So that's my comments now.
Thank you so much. I will continue your thesis, and I would like to connect, actually, as you said, land has been stolen. So it's a question of, to connect a question of imagination with private property. And we almost use this imagination to show this utopian world, and our archive research is actually showing us that we somewhere lost this world when we didn't have private property in the today meaning. And it's a very also brightly said from my another research of Talas region about the shepherd cooperative. So it's like dairy cooperative who was owning this cooperative. They was building actually this museum of Herzen. It's actually it was kolkhoz museum that was created by one accountant from the cooperative. So then they has built their own museum about to make some drawings, pictures about workers. So it was a worker museum, and it's very difficult to actually to see something like this now. And I have read the chapter from their main book, like a statement, and in the beginning it was said that no one from this cooperative cannot actually give to the rent or sell the private the property of cooperative. Workers can use the land only to make their life more to use it for their own prosperity. And it was written in the their book, in their statement. And I really think that it's very important to actually for us to think about this, because recently we had organization Kyrgyzstan here, and they translated one book, Rentier Capitalism, from about actually Central Asian capitalism. And it when what is happening here actually, this all rentier capital used for some criminal structures, some government some people close to government structures, to make their capital more. So it's only growing. People became more unequal, and in the end, all this capital used to make a pressure on people to build very strong hierarchy of authoritarian state, that we can see also what's happening in Russia now. So, and in Kyrgyzstan, we have very, very bad tendencies with like right-wing populists who actually take control of all mining, all industries, and really using, and really pressuring with the shrinking public space. And last year, I was arrested from just nothing because we protesting actually about against this demolishing trolley buses, that actually our municipal property, and they're taking from us it. So that's why, I will leave it here, because it's very important that you asking this question, and we really, I would be very happy to develop it somehow in further discussion and dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you so much. There is a question by Sina, which I would like to bring to your attention. So firstly, Sina thanks the speakers from the bottom of their heart. And she writes, your work is really inspiring, and thank you for telling these enriching stories. And secondly, she would be interested in the documentaries that you, Bermet, talked about. So I guess we can share it in the permanent YouTube link later, I hope so. Or is it easy questions? Can you easy links? Can you send them to me, Bermet? Or is it very long links? Okay.
Yes, I will.
Thank you. And then the question becomes here is that to all of the speakers, how can we show solidarity or even help Indigenous people affected by extractivism? I think that's a really good question. I thought about this as well because I've been sending this invitation mostly to people who are situated in the midst of Europe, and this festival takes part in the midst of Europe. And now we had the opportunity to hear from going to the south of Africa, going to Kyrgyzstan, but also moving 2,000 kilometers north to the outmost margins of the EU in the north. So yeah, I think that's a really relevant question. What can we do to help sitting here in Europe?
Who will start? I think it's very important question, and unfortunately, yeah, it's always can be very big gaps between different countries and actually people opportunities and possibilities, but I totally believe that it's possible to express solidarity, to at least share the information, because now, for example, I'm sorry, it's not connected so for the coal mining, but it's a connecting it with extractivism, because now our government replacing electrical transport with gas buses that actually extracted from Russia, and it's actually now supporting the war because we pay for this gas directly to Gazprom and etc. So we have monopoly actually of Gazprom in Kyrgyzstan. It like historically happened like this, that we cannot buy gas from other countries. So that's why and the trolleybus was supported, funded. The loan was by European Bank of Reconstruction and Development, and so many European countries actually in a board members of these banks, investment banks, and they just keeping silence. So we really try to push them. At least they gave Kyrgyzstan $23 million, and now we really wasting this loan that we still paying, and we do not have access to the environmental transportation. And I think it's a very big question now how all these investment banks are working, like also Asian Development Bank, European Development Bank of Reconstruction and Development. And now I more and more as an analyst work with the monitoring bank, because actually what we also have here in Central Asian countries, that all these banks give very high loans to the country. Usually this loan, the project is very bad from the beginning. It's a really, for example, now I also work in the case with the building hydroelectric station, and it will maybe destroy some natural parks and areas, even with the snow leopards. And like $1 million goes to the saving leopards, and then we have a World Bank project that will actually destroy some rivers close to this national area. So we have this policy like of this bank that we need trying to be more environmental policy, climate change policy, but in a fact they really sucks, because in a fact they really even getting worse for the situation on the place, especially if it's like very like rural area with the inhabitants who even do not know English or other languages, that they do project documentation, and it can be a lot of corruption. And yeah, in the end, people do not have nothing, and they also have a very high depth for this. So, and in Europe, there are also some organizations like Bank Watch or, I don't know, Public Eye. So I really think that it should be more like collaborations and attentions with such projects and initiatives in the Europe also, who really can somehow push the government to avoid these inconsistencies in a project making, and also in mining and all other spheres that giving funding for our countries. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Is there something you would like to add, Miss Marie or Samantha?
I was thinking about people can support us if they are know more about our struggle and learn about our cultures around the world. So you can support us in that way, I think. And it's necessary to compare to each other. People have fight against iron mine or other companies, and they have the same struggle, and they have the same what do you say, they can learn it to each other how they should work to give something back to their culture.
I mean, maybe just to make a few smaller additions. I think the first one is, and Burnett mentioned this, is I think it's about people really asking critical questions about their cell phones, their technology, these new energy systems that have come into play. Gas. I mean, right now, Africa's facing a total onslaught along the west coast of Africa and North Africa for gas. And I mean, there's an enormous pipeline being developed that will eventually take the gas to Europe. The costs are being carried again by Africans who are facing massive gas projects that are taking their land, that are overwhelming their oceans, all of the resources that people need for survival. So I think it's really about, and I guess you could even say it's about consumers, if you wish, just being really critical and thoughtful about thinking about where the things they use every day come from and who's carrying the cost of that. And it's in organizing to respond to that the solidarity is activated and lies. I mean, I think that we've seen a real a surge of young people organizing around the climate crisis, and that's been very powerful to see. But I think it's really important that movements are also taking on board questions around how the climate crisis is impacting people around the world in different ways, in more extreme ways. So on our continent, Africans have contributed 1 to 2% of all carbon emissions over time. But Africans are carrying an enormous price. I mean, the flooding that we have seen on the continent just in the last month and a half, hundreds of people have died. So, I mean, I'm watching the news about the flooding in Central Asia, and every life lost is a tragedy, but the numbers are comparatively small. On the African continent, hundreds, literally in one flooding episode, you'll find hundreds of people die because there's no warning systems. Poor people live on low grounds. There's no infrastructure to force water away. These big hydroelectric dams have placed people in danger where there's flooding of people's homes and settlements by water being released from dams. Yeah, so I think it's about building conscious citizenry and conscious consumers who are organizing and asking questions and really saying, consume less, consume less. We have to do that. That's the only way to obtain equity and redistribution. Ensure that northern governments and big corporations are paying the debt, are paying the reparations to people over time who've carried the costs of slavery, colonization, ongoing imperialism. And I mean, both Bermit and Lise-Marie are talking about people, I mean, in the Swedish context, people in the global north that are carrying the cost of development choices. So, yeah.
Thank you, Samantha. Really brought it to the point. Before I hand over to the Anti-Extraction People's School, because we're already over time, I'd like to pass on also a question from them that is maybe a short one. Does any of you can tell about some successful alliances between labor unions and land and water defenders? Yeah. Maybe you can respond to that quickly, and then I'm afraid I have to hand over, but not without saying thank you. Does somebody know of these successful alliances between labor unions and land and water defenders? Do you want to start, Samantha?
Yeah, I mean, I think, in the African context, there's very low levels of industrialization across most of the continent. And after liberation, a lot of countries started to industrialize their economies and produce goods and start trading internally within the continent. And then you saw a rush on assassinations and threats to countries who were starting to replace imported goods with locally produced goods. So that's been a lot of the history of our continent. South Africa is heavily industrialized compared to a lot of countries on the continent. And we've had a large organized workforce that was very actively involved in the anti-apartheid struggle. There have been many attempts to build alliances with labor. And that's really been about around, for example, the just transition and about creating jobs through the just transition, thinking with workers about how to replace jobs that are going to be lost in polluting industries. So doing a lot of the advanced research and organizing to try and build the bridges. And there have been unions in South Africa, for example, NUMSA, the Metal Workers Union, that did actively take up the just transition as a critical point for organizing. But it's ebb and flow. NUMSA's pulled back. There aren't any other unions right now that we're able to collaborate with actively. I think there's been real attempts to unify community and worker struggles in specific contexts, because workers and communities carry the same costs of the extractive industries. But once again, the mantra of jobs has been, I think, a real source of tension between workers and communities.
Thank you, Samantha. So not an easy question after all. Lise-Marie and Bermit, is there something you would add at this point?
Yeah, you just asked it before about links I have sent to you and here in the chat. So, but it's quite easy. You always can search like Bishkek smoke and find actually my contacts and our activities that we're doing here with all updates. Thank you. Thank you, everyone.
Yeah, maybe we should publish like a link collection where the permanent YouTube stream is being placed. Well, like, may I ask then the Anti-Extraction People School for like a very short summary of the project, and maybe you can give a short preview on what we have to expect in the next days.
Yes, hello everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you for the nods. Thanks. My name is Nina. I'm here with Mirko and Sofia. We are an informal collective called a Group on Green Extractivism in the Balkans, and we are very excited to open up the Anti-Extractivist People School that is going to start tomorrow in person in Vienna. We are currently in the Altengrund Cultural Center with our hosts, which is a really fantastic venue. So we're very excited for the following 3 days of basically following up on many of the conversations that you've been having about international solidarities, particularly in the context of the green transition and the ongoing and increasing extractivism across all of these diverse geographies. So we also really want to thank you, Karin, and all the speakers for such a fascinating and incredible panel that really showcased how all of these things, all of these dynamics and logics are being perpetrated across various geographies and across the global north and the global south, as you've pointed out. So it's been really fascinating to hear from you, and yeah, very, very, very interesting. Do you want to add something? Maybe an invitation?
Yeah, for tomorrow evening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Correct.
Yeah. So we're starting tomorrow. Yeah, I want to say thanks once more. So yeah, just like to extend the invite for tomorrow evening, which is the now the registrations for school are closed, but tomorrow the workshop program. But tomorrow evening we have public program with 4 interesting films talking about different types of extractivism in the Balkans, in Bosnia and Herzegovina and Serbia, including coal, lithium, so-called small hydropower, and gold mining. So please welcome from 8 o'clock to Altengrund, free entrance, everyone. And on Saturday also have a public program from 18 o'clock, 6 in the evening, with the exhibition tour by Miloš Vučićević, whose exhibition we are also sitting inside now. And then we will have a public panel which will close the school. So yeah, hope to see many of you here in the space as well. Yeah. And thanks again, everyone. Dermot, Liz, Maria, and Samantha. It will be nice to have you here, but hopefully, next time. And Karin, we hope to see you tomorrow.
Thank you so much. That sounds all very exciting. And I feel we have to close this. We're already 16 minutes over time. I'm extremely thankful to all of the speakers. Not only did you have patience with us through all our tech hiccups, but you came here despite a cold and despite all the odds we had to face. And I think it was really very important to look at your work and your practices and into all these different areas. I think it has been a great pleasure and a great honor to have you here and listening to you. Thank you. And thanks to Wienwoche again. Bye.
Thank you. It was amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks again. Ciao. Okay.